over the nation's elections. According to the Washington Post, the group is coordinating with the White House and is circulating a draft executive order that claims China interfered in the 2020 election. They're using that as a basis to declare a national emergency that would unlock extraordinary presidential power over voting. In a statement to CNN, the White House says its staff regularly is in communication with a variety of outside advocates who want to share their policy ideas with the president. Any speculation about policies the president may or may not announce is just that, speculation. Does that satisfy you, Congressman, that they're just talking to these people? It's just speculation that he might declare a national emergency to take over elections?
Well, I can't imagine that the president would try a move like that. It would be awful for our country. The Constitution gives control over elections to the states. And is it true that the Chinese Communist Party interferes with our elections? I believe they do. They interfere every single day using social media like TikTok that overwhelmingly bipartisan, the House and the Senate said that they have to divest, TikTok has to divest from their Chinese Communist Party ownership. The president has delayed that for over a year. Now there's going to be some divestment of those ownership interests by the Chinese Communist Party. But we have to recognize that our adversaries, our foreign adversaries, are trying to use our social media and freedom of speech to divide us from each other on a regular basis. They take issues where we're fighting about each other a little bit, and they blow up both sides, giving a different message to this side and a different message to that side. Your show, when you said in the beginning, where people can talk together with different views, that's not happening in most of the country. In most of the country, people are getting information here and information here, and they have nothing to do with each other.
I think that is true, but I'm not so sure that's what Trump is concerned about here. Some of the people that he has around him and some of the people in these groups, what they're talking about are far more outlandish conspiracies, including back in 2020 when they were claiming that, Venezuela was manipulating voting machines. And if it's just China and if it's Russia, which in the same report that accuses China of wanting to interfere with our elections, Russia was found to have interfered in our election, that might be it, but that's not it. There's a lot of other stuff going on.
Well, and there is a lot of stuff. He wants control of the system because he understands that he's going to lose the midterm elections. I will say, if there is a national security threat that they are worried about, whether it's the Chinese or it's somebody else, they need to brief the Gang of Eight on what exactly is going on and what the intelligence is behind that. Instead, what they are doing is there are plans to take the elections away from the states, and unclear who would run them. Kristi Noem, which she can't even run DHS and ICE, so I can't even imagine how she would be running a national election. I also want to point out, I was talking to a national security official who used to work at the Justice Department, and one thing that they were telling me is that if you nationalize our elections, it makes us less safe. The fact that our elections are in states, that happens for a reason, and it happens because then a foreign adversary can't go and necessarily target everyone. It is safer for it to be in the states than for it to be held within the federal government. Also, we don't trust the federal government to run our elections.
Why?
So there are a lot of things wrong with
The Republican Party has spent my entire life talking about the importance of states' rights. Like that was it, the importance of states' rights. And now I feel like everyone's supposed to just roll over and be like, yeah, the federal government takes care of all the elections. That's ludicrous. It's terrible for the people. Everyone sitting at this table and every American should be shocked if that's what they're trying to do. It has nothing to do with foreign interference. It has to do with controlling an election they can't control. And it's not the behavior of someone who thinks they're winning. It's the behavior of someone that thinks they need to do something to win.
I thought they were trying to cancel all the elections. So have we moved on from that talking point? So now it's trying to.
It's not a talking point. We're talking about a story that is in the Washington Post.
No. Previously, the talking point was that he wasn't even going to allow
we're talking about facts
an election to happen. But no, actually, the story doesn't have that many facts. I mean, this is speculation about what could potentially be in an executive order that we haven't actually seen yet. I think a lot of this probably has to do with voter ID law and ensuring that only folks who are in this country legally and are American citizens and are eligible to vote are
Which
being
is what
registered.
already happens.
Except that's not
what already happens.
But that is not true.
Well,
that
It
doesn't
is
happen.
true
You
based
don't have
on
voter
facts.
ID.
It's just not based on what
But
you guys want to say.
But that's just not true. That's factually not true.
No, it is
group
not
going
factually
even
inaccurate.
further
Yes.
in the reporting, and it states that they want people to register to vote over again in an election this year. There is no way that happens, and that I mean, that is completely insane.
There
I
are
mean,
lots of groups.
Republicans and
Oh, I agree with you,
Democrats
actually.
need to be
I
outraged
100%
about this.
agree with you on that. There are lots of groups that say lots of things. There were lots of groups during the
So
Biden
why
administration that said
isn't the
crazy
White
things
House
as well.
knocking that down? Why are they saying,
I
well,
think
the
they did
president
just
takes all
knock it
these
down.
ideas and he takes them under.
Because
I mean,
it's true. They are talking
So,
to different groups,
is-
and there's
but let
going to
me-
be.
Let me get this straight. You think it is okay for the president to consider an executive order that declares an emergency that allows him to take over control of elections?
I don't know if that language is actually accurate. I know that's what's in the reporting, but this whole idea that we're framing it as taking over elections. So, for example, if he were to come out and it really was just focused on basically what's in the SAVE Act, I wouldn't view that, or I wouldn't frame it as taking over federal elections.
SAVE Act
That's
includes
not how it.
DHS taking over all
Well,
voter
hold
rolls.
on. Finish your thought, and then we'll.
But I'm saying we are expanding based on what some activist groups are proposing. Activist groups work with both parties, whoever's in the White House. That is not new. That happens. And sometimes there are groups that come out that have some crazy ideas. And I think politically, you don't just automatically reject an
Okay.
entire group of people who might be part of
You
a
don't-
meaningful conversation
I would
Hold on.
rightly
about what
reject
we
the
do.
people
Two
that say
things.
federal
One,
government
if
should
we-
take
The
it over.
president himself has said that the federal government should take over elections. He said that federal agents should be counting votes. He has said that the federal government, that the states are just agents of the federal government. Those are things that he said with his own mouth, no groups, but that those words in his mouth. And then on top of that, the White House will not rule out that the president would declare an emergency in order to essentially do what he's already said he wants to do, which is take over elections. Why?
Well, he has concerns about the election system. He's made that very clear. I personally don't think the federal government should take over or be in charge of elections. We have a diffused system of elections in this country for a reason. States are in charge of elections, and then you get inside of states and you have county officials. And I think the diffusion of this actually is a protectorate of. It would be hard to hack, or as the congressman said, if people are trying to mess with it, it would be hard to do it because you have so many people with eyes on it in different locations with different laws and different regulations. There's a bit of an inoculation in that. However, the federal government already has some entanglement with states on elections. We have the Help America Vote Act, we have the Voter Registration Act. They expect certain standards when it comes to voter rolls out of states. I think that's very appropriate. States should be asked, I think, to meet those standards. Why do you have hundreds of thousands of people on your voter rolls, for instance, who are not registered or legal voters in your state? These are legitimate questions. I also agree with the congressman about the foreign interference. It may not all be technical interference, but some of it may be psychological warfare against the American people. I think we have to be
Sure.
fully on guard for that. But I think part of the solution here may be just an expansion of the already legitimate connection between federal statutes and the states when it comes to
Well,
ensuring the voter rolls and the systems are working
The
properly.
relationship is through legislation, right? So that's the premise. But here's the thing that's been getting the Trump administration in trouble. They've been asking states to just hand over their voter rolls and sensitive data. And a lot of states have refused. And now they're suing more states. And take a look at this map, because those states in red are the new states that are being sued. And they're Republican states. West Virginia has said, you guys can buy the voter rolls just like everybody else, but we're not giving you sensitive data. Kentucky, Oklahoma, Utah. I mean, you have states that should be fine with this, right? But they're not, because they believe the federal government is overstepping here.
Because the federal government is overstepping. And they're not just overstepping and trying to take voter rolls, and then if they can't just get them, to then sue them, and then if they can't get it that way, to just walk into a place like in Georgia and take them, or put it into the SAVE Act, which they just added in, that every state would have to give their voter rolls to DHS. They're also doing things like messing with the post office, saying when ballots come in, they don't have to be certified that day, changing where ballots are certified. So if I live 300 miles and I put my mail in the box here and it goes 300 miles to be certified, then has to come back to my town to be mailed. It's all about voter interference. It's all part and parcel of the same thing. And it's all part and parcel of somebody that knows they are not going to win without interfering in the
I just want
election.
to take the moment to embrace the fact that Scott has come out and said that he doesn't think the federal government should be taking over state elections. And I would ask that our other colleagues say the same thing, that we all agree here. Let's find the common ground here. The federal government should not be taking over the state's roles in these elections. And let's have the common ground here.
Yep.
It's not going to be as good entertainment, but we need to move the country forward
On the-
and get people working
on the-
together a little bit.
Gotta leave it there, Scott. All right, on that bipartisan note, next for us, new questions after a Columbia student is detained by ICE agents allegedly under false pretenses. What DHS is saying about that, we'll discuss next.